Welcome to the My Creative Days podcast, where we will talk about all things DIY, home decor, decorating tips, and creating a beautiful home on a budget. I am hoping our time together will spark a creative idea, help you plan your next DIY, or inspire you to finally tackle that project you keep putting off. Grab your favorite cup of motivation and let's chat. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today I am back with one of my favorite episodes to do, and I am back with another Q&A. So I have another 5 questions here that I'm going to answer. And again, if you are listening to this, I would love if each of you would send me an email, lindsay@mycreativedays.com. Reach out to me on Instagram @mycreativedays and send me in a question that I can answer here on the podcast. I will never share your name or where it's from. It's just a good indication of, it just lets me know what kinds of things you need help with or want to learn more about or would like to see here on the podcast. So it also helps me with, blog content, Instagram or YouTube content. Your questions matter, and I love each and every one of them. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Like I said, lindsay@mycreativedays.com email, or on Instagram @mycreativedays. So I'm just going to jump right into it. This is going to be, I always say, I think that these are going to be quicker podcasts, but sometimes I get to talking and and they're not as short as I thought they would be. So the first question was, how can I make my small space feel larger with DIY decor tricks? I think the biggest thing with this is what you're bringing into your space. So I am a huge organizer. I am a huge purger. I like to get rid of things. I don't like to keep things we aren't loving, using. That's obviously not working. You throw that away. But I'm constantly getting rid of things and constantly organizing. That is the biggest tip for this question. Do not keep things that you don't love, you are not using, they aren't serving you and your family or, your spaces anymore. Get rid of them. It takes up so much space, physical space in your home, in your spaces, but it's also your mental well-being. It's amazing what it does for you when you can get rid of those things that are just making the space feel stuffy, overcrowded, and just a lot smaller than it actually is. The next thing I would say with decorating a small space, and we have all of our spaces in our home are small. So you definitely want to make sure that the furniture that you have inside your space is to scale, meaning you don't have an overly big couch. They're great when you see them. It's funny because you'll see a really nice sectional or a really nice, just like a regular size sofa. You'll see it on an ad or Pinterest or wherever you see it, and you're like, that's the one I want. But you really need to look at the photo. Obviously, you want to get the dimensions and you want to tape it out in your room and measure it out. But sometimes you just need to step back and look at the actual photo of the sofa, the sectional, whatever. And you can tell this was taken in a big warehouse. And that's how big it looks there. In my small space, it's not going to look that big, or that it's going to be way too big. So one of the things that I like to do when I am picking out anything, this just happened when we put sconces at our front door, is that number one, you want to get the measurements of whatever it is that you're putting in your space. And then you want to use painter's tape. Painter's tape is just really good because it's not going to damage anything. And then you can tape out whatever. If this is on your walls, we just did it with some hooks too. On your walls, on the floor, whatever it is, tape out the dimensions of whatever you're thinking about buying and put it in that space on the floor, on the wall, and then step back and look at it. Live with it for a few days. Just make sure that it's not too big for the space, because if you have too big of things and too much stuff in a small space, it's going to feel tiny. You don't have to have a large home to make it, functional and amazing. But some of these things, you just want to make sure that you're paring down, get rid of stuff that you're not using. Definitely measure 16 times before you buy anything. And then also whenever I'm out searching for like furniture to flip or whatever, my favorite pieces to find, and they're always the old vintage pieces. It just, back in the day, a lot of the pieces were smaller. So any piece that gives me storage, but yet it's not going to take up so much room, like maybe it's not too deep, or it's just on a smaller scale. A lot of the old furniture pieces that I pick up are like that. So definitely that's another little trick, the older vintage furniture. Now you can get, when I say vintage, I'm talking before the 60s. Like some of the 70s and 80s furniture was massive, but I'm just talking about the earlier stuff. A lot of it's on the smaller scale. So you'll still get a ton of storage and you can still use it in your space, but it's not going to take up so much real estate in that space to make your space feel small. Another thing, natural light. So not covering the windows with a bunch of dark curtains, or adding mirrors to a space. If you can add a mirror where the natural light kind of bounces off, it just makes a room feel a lot bigger. Using neutral colors is another trick that you can use that will make it feel larger. Use your dark, bold colors, in your throw pillows, your blankets. You've heard me say this many times. Maybe it's a coffee table you paint in a bold color, but like the walls and everything, they're painted in a color that's going to, once that natural light comes in, the space is just brighter and lighter, and it'll feel larger. Okay, the next question, are there any eco-friendly options for home decor and furniture flipping? So this is kind of a twofold question, so I'm just going to kind of answer it. I'm not going to go into both. I mean, this is like a podcast episode all on its own. Number one, with home decor, if you're walking into a thrift store, estate sale, restore shop, yard sales, and you're buying home decor, that's eco-friendly right there, right? Like you're not buying new. You're recycling what's at those places. You're making them fit your style and your budget and your home without going and buying new. So that alone right there is the biggest, eco-friendly or home decor tip I can give you. Not only that, I mean, like I've done tons of podcast episodes about this, and I could get going on that alone. You're going to get custom pieces full of character and stories, and like your home and your space, your spaces are never going to look like somebody else's. It's not going to look like you walked into whatever store, bought everything on display, and came home and put it in your home. Like just shopping that way, it's not only is it eco-friendly, but it's just going to give you a more curated, to me, better space in your home. Adding new and old is good, but you can get so much just by shopping thrift stores, yard sales, estate sales for your home. So, and furniture flipping, there are tons of products out there that are eco-friendly. You just got to find the ones that you like. So for me, I have talked about this before. I love, vinegar and water for cleaning my pieces, works usually most of the time. There are some times when you have to get that harsher cleaner out, depending on, your piece. The salve I use and share all the time, that's a good option. Thieves cleaner, I use that as well. So there are definitely some products that are out there that are a lot more eco-friendly, definitely for your furniture flipping as well. Okay, the next one is, what tools do I need to start furniture flipping? You need a paintbrush and a sander. I guess the two things that I would definitely tell you that you should do: invest in a good paintbrush. And by that, I don't mean $100 paintbrush. You can get a good paintbrush for under $20. I do have favorite paintbrushes, and they are not, like hundreds of dollars. But do not buy the cheapest paintbrushes out there. Just don't waste your money. Do not do it. And then an orbital, like a rotary sander, is something else that I would also tell you to get. Those two things, you can do most everything. And the rotary sander that we really love, we've tried tons. It's the DeWalt one. That has been our favorite, hands down. So a good paintbrush, a good sander, those are the two that maybe you need to invest in. Obviously, you're going to have, paint if you're painting, cleaning supplies to clean your piece and all of that. But the question was, what tools? Here's the thing. The one thing that I love about furniture flipping and that I teach inside my Furniture Flipping Academy, You don't need a ton of tools and you don't need a ton of knowledge to start flipping furniture. It's one of my favorite things about flipping furniture because anybody can do it. And the more and more you do it, the better and better you get. So it's just one of those things that it doesn't take a big investment up front for you to be, if you're flipping for profit, for you to be making money with your first flip. Like literally, it's just amazing. So the next question, how can I incorporate thrifted items into my home decor style? Oh my goodness. Can I just do an entire podcast? Actually, I think I have like 1,000 podcasts about this because this is my jam. And what I would like you to do, if this was your question or if this is something you wonder about, follow my YouTube channel. I share videos. I launch new videos every week. And in a lot of the videos, number one, I'm taking you inside the thrift store with me and I'm showing you kind of why I pick up something or what different things that catch my eye. Number two, I share my thrifted hauls. So I am sharing what I bring home and why. And number three, then I show you how to style those things or decorate with those things in your home. I have so many videos like that on my YouTube channel. So I will leave a link to my YouTube channel down in the show notes because sometimes like this kind of question, sometimes I need to visually see it for me to understand it, if that makes sense. So if that's you, check out that link in the description. It's My Creative Days on YouTube, so super easy to find. You know the things when you are searching, looking through a magazine, looking on Pinterest, watching HGTV, whatever it is where you are scrolling Instagram, you are finding home and decorated spaces that you absolutely love. That right there is your inspiration. You need to, I don't know, like back in the day, I used to have binders full of my inspiration from magazines, but now we all have Pinterest. But you need to have that Pinterest board or just, something in your brain that you're going to remember so that when you go into a thrift store, you're going in with an open mind and you're going to try and find those things that will give you that same look, but maybe it just needs a little makeover. So you need to go into a thrift store with an open mind because you're not, I say this with a little asterisk because it has happened to me before. I have walked into a thrift store, thinking that I'm going to find something to make to look like this Pottery Barn, whatever I saw. And then you will walk in and find the Pottery Barn, whatever. I've shared it before in my videos. It has happened to me many times. I will be at Target loving something, and then I will walk into a thrift store and find the same thing for pennies, for a lot less. So that does happen. But you're looking for some, things that will give you kind of the same look, but you may have to paint it. You may have to take it apart. You may have to, whatever it is. You just have to go in there with an open mind. And then incorporating thrifted items is just like anything else. Like you don't want to look your home and your spaces to look like an antique store. So this kind of goes back to the first one where you want to purge what you don't love. And then you're going to bring in things that you do love, but, not stuff it. And my rule of thumb is if I bring something in, something has to come out. So let's just say I know I'm going to decorate a mantle. I mean, either I took everything off or there's just a couple things I want to take off that mantle and I want to add new to it. So then I will, for me to bring this thing home, I know that such and such thing has to go. And by go, I mean donated. Get it out of your house. We don't need a closet and an empty room in the basement full of home decor items. Like, obviously, you'll have seasonal items for, Christmas and things like that. But we don't need to hoard stuff like, a home decor store would in the back. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no reason for that. And again, as you get better at thrifting and going in and knowing what you're looking for and like kind of your style, your every space in your home is just going to look curated and it's going to look put together and it's going to look purposeful. Like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. This all goes together. Like this is a nicely decorated, like all together space. So yeah, like I said, this is my creative days. This is the core of my creative days, this question. So I love it. It's just, I could go in so many different directions. And anytime, if you're ever listening to my podcast and you have like a follow-up question or hey, you said this, but what do you mean by that? Or how do I do that? Please, again, send me a message, send me an email. And I would love to, come on and continue the conversation just so that I make sure that I'm explaining it well enough. Okay, so what are some creative ways to repurpose old furniture items? This is another great question. I have a few posts on my website, mycreativedays.com, about this that actually show you furniture items that I've actually repurposed into other things. I could go into, we have repurposed old doors into benches. We have repurposed old beds into benches. We have repurposed old doors into entry tables. Sometimes you can find like a small chest of drawers or like a small piece of furniture where you can take out the drawers on the top and make it a bench, but like more like a seat. Like, there are so many ways that you can repurpose old furniture items. I once picked up a top half of an old water bed. This is going to sound funny. It was like the mirror part of an old waterbed set, but it was part of the dresser. I don't know if I've got this on my website, but basically it was just the mirror part that kind of had the shelves on the side, if you can picture this. And it was just sitting on the floor at a thrift store. I brought it home and repurposed it into a mantle shelf for our living room. So there are just so many things. One time I found another shelf piece that, again, I just flipped upside down and it had these little drawers inside. And the way that I flipped it upside down and the way it just made more sense that way. And again, became something that hung on the wall. There are just so many ways that you can repurpose furniture pieces. You can put legs on hutches. You can put legs on bookshelves. You can cut off, like we did this old hutch, but the bottom was so warped and water damaged that we had to cut the entire bottom of this hutch off and make it into a new hutch, if that makes sense. Like, there are so many ways that you can repurpose furniture items. So I will leave a link in the show notes for a couple of those posts as well, so you can check out. Again, I just feel like that, I can talk about it here, but actually to see it visually will really help. So definitely check out the show notes for that link. But those were the other 5 questions. Again, I would truly appreciate it if you send in some questions. This is just so helpful and it's so fun for me. I love Q&A on Instagram, on like YouTube, here on the podcast. It's just a fun way where I'm not always just talking at you, but actually answering the questions that you have. And so please send those questions in. As always, if you find these podcast episodes helpful, please share them. I always appreciate it when you share it. But check out the description or the show notes for the links. I hope you have a great day. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm grateful that you tune in every week and that you share the show with your family and friends. I love having creative chit chats with you, and my hope is that this podcast will inspire you to try a new project, start a DIY that you've been putting off, and decorate your home exactly how you want it. There are a few ways you can help us with the podcast. Follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you could take a few minutes to leave the podcast a review, that would help us so much. Again, thank you for being here, and I look forward to our chat next week. Bye-bye.